Now we've got time to move on to out to launch with you, Chris. I know that some stuff has been launching and there are plans for more. So what do we have in store for us?
Yeah, absolutely. Let's have a little look at what's going on with the world of launching and so forth. Of course, we're talking about things that happen or leave the Earth, that are off the Earth, but of course, all those events are also connected with things here on the Earth. So I will at least want to mention here something about the larger situation going on, because the international situation involves two of the leading spacefaring nations, the United States and Russia, are having some difficulties at the moment. It's a period of strained relations. You may wonder what this means for space exploration. Well, here's a quote from NASA, and this is Kathy Luter. She's the head of NASA's Human Spaceflight Directorate, and essentially her quote there is that the teams are continuing to work together. The people are actually working together day-to-day basis, operating the space station. There's no problem with them. They are cooperating as they usually do. They're consummate professionals, and we do not have any information to suggest that anybody is going to be making any immediate changes to how the U.S. and the Russians cooperate on the International Space Station. Of course, that's our immediate ongoing thing that we have. There are longer-term questions that, if people aren't getting along too well, we might have to address. One of the things that folks may know is that United States astronauts have flown to the space station with the Russians in their Soyuz spacecraft. In the past, when the space shuttle was operating, Russian cosmonauts would fly as crew members on the American spacecraft. And now they can do that again because of the Dragon spacecraft from SpaceX. Now that it's operational, the policy of exchanging seats would allow Russians to come in and fly on Dragon. Now, what is just the only immediate question I think that really is before us with regard to this is that an American was supposed to be coming home with two Russian cosmonauts and landing in Russia at the end of this month. Mark Vande Hei, our astronaut, was going to go home with them. Well, that was the plan. No one has suggested a change. There may be no change at all. But that's the most immediate thing I can think of. They did have a plan in September where a cosmonaut was going to fly on Dragon and an American astronaut was going to fly up with two cosmonauts. Is that plan still going to happen? Well, as far as I know, there's no change yet. Watch the headlines, but the main thing is, for right now, there's no immediate change. Longer-term questions, sure, we do have some. The Russians build a number of rocket engines that are used, for example, in the Antares launch vehicle, American vehicle. The Atlas rocket uses some Russian-derived equipment as well. Will those supplies of parts be interrupted? Will we have to switch to a different rocket engine? Who knows? Now, more seriously for our Mars fans, though, the ExoMars lander, a partnership between the European Space Agency and Russia, was going to have the Russians doing a lot of engineering to build the ExoMars lander. So that, too, is a question. Down the road a bit, we'll get it all sorted out. We did have a problem with the launch of a small vehicle, the ASTRA launcher. Its first launch from Cape Canaveral. It was their seventh launch. Unfortunately, 6 of them had failed. They were launching up from Alaska, and they had one successful launch into orbit from Alaska, which was their 6th launch attempt, was successful. But number 7, unfortunately, their first launch from the Kennedy Space Center in Florida, and the second stage did not detach properly from the first stage, so it's a failure. But you got to remember, you try again. I'm sure these guys will be back. They'll get it figured out. It's a new vehicle. The Russians are sending up 3 cosmonauts on the 18th. Interestingly, by the way, these are all 3 Russian cosmonauts. The original plan several months ago was to have an American launching with them on the 18th, but NASA decided to wait till September. So this flight is going to be all Russian cosmonauts. We have a private space mission coming up with the SpaceX Dragon. The AXIOM 1 mission has essentially paying passengers, with the exception of one of them is a former NASA astronaut, second from left in the picture. The others are essentially just paying customers. They're going to spend 8 days on the International Space Station. The AXIOM space company that's arranging the mission is looking to develop a space station, a new space station in Earth orbit that would serve both tourists and scientific research. For a regular crew rotation for the United States, in April, we have the Crew 4 mission. These are 3 NASA astronauts on the left and 1 European astronaut on the right. They'll be going up for a 180-day stay on the space station. Looking at the Starlink business that was already mentioned, why did that happen? Why did we lose some satellites? Isn't the sun always a factor? Well, SpaceX has a policy of launching these satellites into very low orbits to start with. They always operate at a fairly low orbit. That's what they do. But SpaceX will launch them only 130 miles above the Earth's atmosphere when they very first start, because sometimes satellites won't work. And if SpaceX commands the satellites not to raise their orbit, they have small thrusters on them. Just leave it alone. The satellites will re-enter very quickly over a few days and will be disposed of. So that was a policy they had intentionally to do that. Now, if the Earth's atmosphere is energized by a geomagnetic storm, though, it increases the density of the atmosphere. And that's what happened here. They launched a batch. They were all still at their preliminary low orbit, hadn't raised it yet, and got caught by that. Now, the SpaceX has launched a bunch of replacement satellites already, so this is no big deal. And by the way, they did launch them to a slightly higher orbit this time. Starship, you may be wondering what's going on with the big giant rocket in South Texas that SpaceX is building. Still waiting for approval from the FAA. Well, not entirely waiting, because it may be a delay. We don't know when it'll be approved. Kind of strange that they didn't get it formally approved in advance. But the plan now, SpaceX is launching ahead with building a launch pad and tower at Kennedy Space Center in Florida, where they certainly have permission to launch. If they have to wait to launch from Florida, it might be a delay towards the end of the year, around about that time. We do have a return of Jared Isaacman. You may remember him from the Inspiration 4 mission, a private mission to do fundraising for St. Jude's Research Hospital, an Earth orbit mission. Well, it turns out Jared Isaacman likes being an astronaut and has actually purchased yet another space flight. In fact, 3 more are planned. The one coming up that you see here is going to launch toward the end of the year with a couple of other, the other 3 people there to the right are SpaceX employees. And if you see the picture of the Dragon in space, you'll see he's doing or someone's going to do a spacewalk. And that's because SpaceX is designing a brand new spacesuit. So that's going to be an exciting mission. We don't know too much about the next Dragon mission that he's going to be on, but we do know about the 3rd one he's going to be on. The 3rd one is he intends to command the first human flight of the giant Starship rocket in Earth orbit. Wow. Now, that won't be this year. We'll have to wait and see just when that happens. So that's something we're waiting for. Here's something else we're waiting for. What about the big giant moon rocket, Artemis 1 mission with the Space Launch System? NASA's latest words, we're probably going to have to wait till May at the very earliest. Maybe it's going to be June. We'll find out more about that as announcements are made. Well, anyway, that's it for the world of launching.